What's up, guys? It's Eventon here. As you guys can tell, the footage is going quite fast, but that's because we have a lot of footage to go over. So every time one of these events come out, I always take pride or try my best to at least come up with some sort of alpha fit that is going to be very easy for some of you new players to skill into. That's going to be very easy for you guys to run the site very efficiently and literally just leave all your modules on for the most part and be cap stable. Like, that is mostly the goal of these types of fits, is to make it literally as easy as possible for even some of the new players that aren't as nuanced when it comes to like running these PvE sites. So the first ship I wanted to try was the tried and true Praxis. Anytime there is these PvE sites that basically allow battleships, I always try the Praxis because A, they're very, very inexpensive, and B, they have a lot of well-rounded skills when it comes to pretty much every large weapon in the game, as well as drones. Now, I will say in these sites, and this is something that I noticed last year too, and it seems like a year ago, last year when this event came out, this was like the first event they really had the NPCs focus the drones extremely hard. So I will admit you have to keep a very, very close eye on your drones when running these sites. And I will admit I'm not a huge fan of this with this type of basically punishment for using drones. I do think it should be a challenge to use drones, but maybe when you have the drones on a target for a while, that target will start locking your drones or whatever it is. But there have been times where I even let the room aggro me for a full 10 or 15 seconds, then I eject my drones, and those, like half the NPCs in the site, will start aggroing my drones within about 5 seconds and almost immediately kill some of my drones. So unfortunately, with this Praxis fit, which again, all the fits are going to be down in the description below, the majority of my damage just came from the missiles. I would deploy my drones and have to call them back in and shoot them out and call them back in. It was honestly, it was pretty annoying to deal with. But overall, these sites actually aren't too bad. I did this site actually extremely easily. This entire fit is pretty much meta fit. I did my best to make sure that this fit would work for a lot of you alpha characters or so many low skill players that only have like CPU and power upgrades to like 4. So this fit should work for the most part. And as you guys can see, actually throughout the entirety of this Praxis run, my shield never got below 75%. Like, I only lost 25% of my shields throughout the entire time. There's a couple times where I ran into some cap troubles, but that's literally because I was really over repping my shields for pretty much no reason. So occasionally when you don't need a rep, just be sure to turn off your shield booster and then turn it back on when you need it. The Nosferatu, which is a heavy Nosferatu, is just an additional way to kind of keep yourself cap stable as well. But this Praxis honestly did these sites with ease. So these sites, even though it shows me doing them in wormhole space, these new event sites, they're actually the combat ones. The level of difficulty is the exact same across all the sites in the game. The only exception is in low sec when it comes to derelict or out in delve. So if you're in low sec forge, low sec domain, the difficulty is the same. It doesn't matter. High sec, null, wormhole space, it's all the same difficulty. I will admit, and as you guys can see here towards the end, I wasn't too impressed with the payouts. I ran the site twice. And I got anywhere between like 10 to 15 million in loot. I've had about 4 or 5 other court mates also run these exact same sites, whether in wormhole or in high sec. They kind of reported the same earnings, anywhere between like 10 to 20 million at most. I think there was one guy that got like a 40 million skin, but that seems like a really one-off thing. And a lot of these skins, especially like the cold irons and stuff like that, they're really overpriced because the last time they were released was a year ago. All those skins are going to be tanking in price. So when you guys kind of get this loot and you see there's a high price skin, in my personal opinion, within the first couple days of the event, I would just sell them immediately when you can, and then you can actually rebuy that probably same skin for 1/10 of the price later on when the event is getting a bit over. So for the most part, like, this site is really, really straightforward. We're pretty much cap stable the entire time. Our shields never get too low. When it comes to the resistances, by the way, when you guys first start, you guys are gonna have to choose a side, whether it's the Tetrimon or the Blood Raiders. I think the majority of people are gonna pick Blood Raiders, which means you're pretty much limited to the, I believe, Tetrimon sites, because you're gonna be attacking the site that you're opposed to or whatever it is. And for some reason, I noticed that, like, it seems like the Crimson Harvest sites, for the most part, they are mostly EM and thermal, so you want to use like mostly EM or thermal damage, but then occasionally there are rats that do have like an explosive hole, and it seems to be a 50-50. So to be honest, it's really, really difficult to determine like what's the proper damage to do with some of these sites. I just stuck with the Caldari Navy like thermal heavy missile ammo the entire time, and that seemed to work perfectly fine. So as you can see there, I'm checking out on the resist, but then I check out the resist on another ship later in this video where it actually has an explosive hole in the armor. So it just seems to be like a 50-50, and ideally you probably bring more than just one ammo type, but it seems like the thermal did perfectly well throughout this whole time. And honestly, in some ways, this Praxis was really, really overkill. As you can see there, I only got about 10 or 15 mil from the loot. And you want to make sure too, if you're doing these sites in high sec, you guys really hug up against that battleship, because all of the loot is in that final battleship in that final room. If you look at this initial room here, right now I'm actually flying the, gosh, it's not the Claymore, it's the Cyclone, which is the T1 battle cruiser for the Minmatar ship. So that one uses heavy missiles. It's kind of drone focused. There's a second warp gate in that initial warp in. Those you can actually get those keys from the exploration sites, which allows you just to completely skip that and like that first room, and you can go immediately to the last room. So it's a really good way for some of you guys to kind of, let's say, ninja loot sites in high sec. If someone's working on that first room, you could just skip that room and go to the second room and try and rush down the battleship as fast as you can. That's one way to do it. It's probably going to be really, really good for low sec. I have not run the low sec sites at all, but I did hear those are quite difficult. So I'm either going to try and find a way to do them solo or run them in a group with my corp mates. And if that does happen, I'll be sure to record that info as well. So I was trying to figure out which battle cruiser I wanted to do for this. I'll be honest. Again, you can see here the drones are getting focused very heavily. So with one of my utility slots, I actually used a remote armor repper, which seemed to do pretty well. I was thinking about the Drake, but that is kinetic locked, and that probably isn't really ideal with these sites, because some of these ships do have a very high kinetic resist, while others do have relatively low. Again, for some reason, some of the ships have varying levels of resistance for the most part. So I'll put a link down in the description below to this fit, but I will admit I was not able to complete the site with this fit. I lost my drones very quickly. A decent chunk of my damage does go to the drones in these sites. So if you guys are thinking about running like a Prophecy, I remember there was a comment on another YouTuber's page talking about these event sites. He's like, oh, can I run this in the Prophecy? I'm like, you probably you won't have an issue at all tanking the site in a Prophecy, but the issue is so much of your damage is tied up in the drones that you're going to have to shoot out your drones and recall them at least 10 or 15 times over the course of the site. That's like bare minimum, probably like 15 to 20 times. When you're running the whole site from beginning to end, which is very, very obnoxious. So I do not suggest you guys run these sites in anything like a ship that's like heavily tied up with drone damage. I have heard T3Cs can run these sites relatively easily in high sec. Hacks can also do a very good job. So like the Vagabond, I would imagine the Cerberus would probably do a good job in the sites as well. So just pretty much hacks as well as T3Cs if you want to do something smaller than a battleship for the most part. If you kind of want to flex those high skill ships, you can definitely do that as well. And so as you can see here, I've already lost one Imperial Navy infiltrator, and as we kind of go along in the site, and remember, like, these fits are very, very low skill. So if you guys have the capability with the Praxis to T2 out those like rapid heavies, use better drones, use better skills, or just even better ships overall, that's pretty much it. I always just try to make the cheapest ships possible with the lowest skills possible when it comes to these event sites. So in my honest opinion, if you guys are new, do the Praxis fit. The Cyclone fit was kind of more of a personal challenge just to see if I could do it in a less expensive ship. So the Praxis fit is like 200 mil. This Cyclone fit was about 100 mil, but I'm sure some of you guys that are willing to use, like I said, hacks or T3Cs, you guys are going to be able to steamroll through these sites very, very easily. As long as you focus those crucifiers that do a lot of E-War, they're not too bad. Also, if you focus the Oracle, that does very, very high EM damage. You have to keep an eye out for that as well. But yeah, eventually I lose all of my drones. I'm basically forced off the grid and leave. And again, I do like these sites. I do like these events, but at the end of the day, just the hard aggro on the drones does make it quite obnoxious. And that's why I highly suggest, if you guys are going to be doing these sites, to either use a battleship that uses a high amount of damage in their guns, whether it's projectile or missiles. And if you are going to be using battle cruisers, maybe use like faction battle cruisers, again, with more damage tied up in the guns, hacks, as well as T3Cs. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, the description of the fits are down in the description. If you guys have any other questions about the sites, let me know down in the comments below. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys take care and you fly safe.